Good evening, everyone.
One of our following, more or less, I just had twins. I had twins today.
Chabad of West Parkland.
Mazel tov, mazel tov. The West?
Chabad of West Parkland. Then you good with it.
Like my Schwer's cousin or something.
How about of West where?
I think that's where that shooting was.
Parkland. No, Coral Springs.
Where was that public school shooting?
Coral Springs.
But that's right near Coral
Yeah, right.
Springs.
It's right there.
Parkland is right there. A lot of these cities are all joining.
Yeah.
They're one. They lead one into the other.
My nieces went there because the house where they live is right there. Well, one blends into the other.
How are you?
Call your brother.
Oh, yeah. Hey, so this
Okay,
is-
actually,
I think Denver, Rabbi Denver. I think
they want to see you too.
Right.
Miss you, when you come here.
Oh. When are you moving to Florida?
When I finish, I have to finish Shabbos
Oh,
in 10 days.
Siyum HaKadosh. Then you're going to work
And then
gradually.
I can, I have to finish packing and, getting everything ready.
Okay, Rabbi Yisai Simin Reish Nun Aleph.
What page is it?
Page Pevav. Pevav. We should all have the same pages, I think.
Pay off and
H,
finish pay off. Okay.
that's what?
Pevav.
Just pay off, not
Yeah,
pay.
just Pevav.
Beginning.
Okay. Hilchos Shabbos.
Hilchos Shabbos. Simin Reish Nun Aleph.
Mhm.
No, this way, this way. One more.
Is that
Yeah, Pevav.
it?
Simin Reish Nun Aleph Shavas Malacha Ber Shabbos Min HaMincha L'Mayla. Erev Shabbos, we should not do malacha from mincha and on. Mincha does not mean from we daven mincha. It means from the time on the calendar. It's called mincha.
Would that be Mincha Gadol or Mincha?
Oh, good question. Let's take a look. Asru chachamim lasis malacha ber Shabbos ve'erev Yom Tov min mincha ulamayla, from the mincha time and on.
Mhm.
Chala oisa
No, why so long?
ein irayis simin bracha la'olam na'oisa malacha. What does that mean? Shemash shemaviyah, but whatever you will profit from it, mafsik in exam makam acher, you will lose from another area.
Uh-huh.
Well, ein einshin oisei aleha le'nidui le'makas mardis. You will not be punished for it. Not nidui, not excommunication, not le'makas mardis, not having malchus midrabanan. We know that the Torah says a person can get lashes. Now, the Torah has many different punishments. We don't have the punishment of prison time in the Torah, but we have the punishment of malchus. And there is a midrabanan malchus, which is called makas mardis. You get makas for being moided, and that's midrabanan. For being over on adin derabanan. Kederech she'oisin l'oiver adirech chachamim. We don't do that over here. Chacham were not as machmer with this iser. When we call makim, we scream at him and we tell him, stop what you're doing, so don't do malacha. What does this mean? We're going to learn about what this means, what the time frame is here in the simon. What the David was asking, when is this time? Some say it's from Mincha Gedoyel and on, and Mishei Shois Mechzvela, from 6.5 hours and on into the day. 6.5 hours after sunrise, Neitzachama, calculate 6.5 hours, and that's Mincha Gedoyel. V'yeshem, some say Shemincha Ketana and Tisha Mechza. It's 9.5 hours into the day. So it's a Machlekes Rishonim. Well, the Inyan Halacha, someone who is lenient by din derabanan, because this whole Isser is only derabanan, and is mekel, and he only doesn't do malacha after mincha gedoy ktana, he did not miss any bracha out. So you're allowed to do up until mincha Ketana, which is 9.5 hours into the day, much later in the day. or in other words, 2.5 hours before nightfall, before sunset. What type of malacha is forbidden? Any malacha? I mean, I can't turn on a light. What can I do? I don't drive. People drive after. People do malacha. What does it mean? Also, ala malacha gemura. Chachamim only forbade actual work. Pragmatium materes. Doing business is mutter. Add shear to the point she's bar. We should add the Shabbos. We shouldn't do business all the way up to Shabbos. Stores should close sometime before Shabbos. Even actual work is only forbidden when you're kevei yourself that every single Friday after Mincha Tana, I do this work. This is my time, I do this work. You're not supposed to do that. It's kavua. Avamot the last is malacha lefi shah derech alei. To do something temporary basis, you can do malacha even after Mincha Tana. Going, for example, what happens if you wanted to write a letter to someone? Shalom, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. Write him a letter. That's something temporary. It's not something that you're kavua. You remembered you wanted to send him something, so you write him a letter before Shabbos. You send it off in the post. Not a problem. Should also the last is malacha derech kebab. Page ches on the last line. Should they also last is malacha derech keva? Hacham only forbade doing a malacha bekvius. Kedei sheiponi, this aspect of the Shabbos, you should be available to be involved in the work of Shabbos. So it means like someone sets himself up that every Shabbos, before Shabbos, 2 hours before Shabbos, I sit and I write things and I get paid for it and I write or you certain malachas, you shouldn't be kaveis of malacha, you should be involved, be free to take care of Shabbos needs.
Somebody walking in the office.
But not kavua, temporary, you could do it.
Somebody walking in the office, he has to finish 4 o'clock and Shabbos is 6 o'clock. What do we do? You're not leave early. It's a problem. But they're going, you're working, your computer guy, something.
It's a good shiloh. I don't know. It's a very good shiloh. Let's see if we can have an answer in the next sif, and that's very important. Yeah, many people work close to Shabbos. They have no job. No,
Not up to them.
They
Right.
can start that work 4 o'clock. They may be working all day and they're finishing.
So maybe it's maybe you're saying is that maybe that they started malacha.
Project. At that point, they're continuing.
Right. It's a good svara. It doesn't mention it, but
He doesn't mechalek.
right. He's not mechalik,
It
but
sounds
maybe
like
there is such a chiluk. Maybe it is such a chiluk.
Sounds like you don't start a project at that point, because you may get involved and then before you know it, it will be right before Shabbos. But if you're working all day, you started. In
It might be
morning.
it might be considered. It's a good point.
Although he doesn't distinguish the way the Shulchan Aruch presents it, he just says you don't do work at that point, and he doesn't distinguish. You started in the morning,
Right.
You started last night, and you're working straight through.
Correct.
He doesn't distinguish.
Correct. He doesn't.
So where does that take us?
Correct. Let's try to finish a simmer. Maybe we'll have some type of inkling when we see the further halachas for these questions. Fila mishen, top of page pay test. Fila misheni tzarich kalal is asa b'torchei Shabbos. Even if someone does not at all need to be involved with tzarchei Shabbos because other people are doing it for him, or he's a guest. Also, last is malach when shiratzu chacham l'chalak b'zerasim. Chacham did not want to make differentiations in their gezeris, in their decrees. If they asked it, they asked it for everyone. Even what we said earlier, that you're not allowed to be kaveh yourself for an actual malacha. Making business is not considered an actual malacha. But any one of the lamitas malachas, it's only if you're not doing it for Shabbos purposes. You're doing it for Shabbos, you're doing it for payment. That's when they said it's Asr. To do things for Shabbos for free. You're going to sew clothing for Tzarech HaShabbos. Bein loi, bein lechaveroi. Bechinam. Mutter kol hayoim. Geen mutter lahatik svarim lo vehem. Bein shekois la'atzmeish, bein shekois lachaveroi. Bechinam. If you want to copy svarim, then svarim were copied by hand. Svarim were copied by hand. And whether you're copying a sefer for yourself to learn or for your friend, and you're doing it for free. Kivan shehu dvar mitzvah. Since it's for mitzvah purposes, because you want to learn from the sefer. Harei zeh kilat Shabbos. That is considered as tzarech Shabbos. Meaning, we now learn that tzarech Shabbos can be widened to any tzarech mitzvah. Any tzarech mitzvah is the status of tzarech Shabbos, and you're allowed to do that malacha after mincha ketanan on, even though it's malacha gemura, and even if you're doing it by kviyas. However, if it's not tzarech Shabbos, if it's not tzarech mitzvah, then it's a problem to be kaveya yourself to malacha after mincha ketanan on before Shabbos. And even if it is the tzarech Shabbos or the tzarech mitzvah, it's a problem if you're earning money for it. That would be a problem.
It's done.
I just want to point out, this was even after the printing press came out, right? What was that, in the 1500s, right? People still copied Svarim by hand. Copying Svarim by hand didn't become unpopular to much more recent times. Maybe 100 years ago, maybe even less. We have to also remember that it wasn't like today where you can print yourself a book on any avenue. Go to a store and print yourself a book. And every house has a printing press. We have our own little mini printing press in your house. You have your printer. Then, pre-war, especially pre-World War II, people wouldn't always buy themselves a sefer. They would copy the sefer, pay someone to copy it. That's how things were spread around. Now, Sif Daled Al Tarev explains like this. Also, the sapras anochni v'er Shabbos mincha l'mayla, filo tisperishi ma'aseh hadit. You're not allowed to give a haircut to a guy at Shabbos from mincha and on. Mincha ketana. He always says mincha l'mayla, but earlier he says machloek is showing him it's mincha l'mayla. Ketana mincha g'doila, and I make up a different side for him like hifsid, so you could do malacha up until mincha ketana. Give yourself more time. I feel masapir bechinam kivin she'ein b'malachos tzarech haShabbos. People say, well, I'm not being paid for it. What's the big deal? There's no tzarech haShabbos. The goy should have a haircut, so therefore you shouldn't do it. You're allowed to give a haircut to a yid an entire day. Even if it's a professional haircut. If you're paid. When we said earlier that on the previous sif that even things Shabbos Shabbos only mutter when it's bechinam. But if it's schar, it's also even when it's tzarech Shabbos. So over here, why when it comes to giving a haircut, you say even if you're paid, you're allowed. Other malachas like sewing clothing, things like that, it's not clear it's specifically for Shabbos. The fichach ain't hetel beginning for Chazal only matter if you did it for free. Sheyitul schar, if you take payment, it seems if you're doing it just for your payment, you need money. It's not being done for the cover of the Shabbos. What is spiders? So gesund to spiders. Hey, haircut. Nikeres shenat asher Shabbos. Why are you doing it right now? Clear, this is done for Shabbos. So therefore, Chazal were makel that you're allowed to even take payment for it. Because it's nicker, regardless, it's nicker that's the point of Shabbos. So because the heter is, even though there's an issue to do malacha after milchiktan and on, the heter over here is because it's a tzorech HaShabbos. How is he allowed to do b'schar? He explains the whole chilik to b'schar and chinam is whether it's not the malacha's nicker with tzorech Shabbos now. All the malachas, it's not nicker to tzorech Shabbos. Therefore, you're not allowed to take schar. You take schar, then it looks like you're doing it for yourself. It's taking away from the tzorech Shabbos, the tzorech atzmacha. Shenkin by Tisparides, it's clear it's tzorech Shabbos. The fact that you're taking payment for it is not going to take away from the fact that the haircut seems tzorech Shabbos. Sifei mishu ani v'reit zelasis malacha l'staker l'hoitzi eschar l'tzorech Shabbos. Mote lasis kol hayom. He wants to do malacha to get paid. We said it earlier, you're not supposed to get paid. But he's doing it because he's ani. And he needs tzorech HaShabbos, he needs food for Shabbos. So he's allowed to get paid. Because his payment is for tzorech HaShabbos. Even a cholamoid, the ani needs to do malachas, is allowed to do malachas. We allow ani to do malachas. A cholamoid, he needs to pay for his yamtiv, pay for his food. It's more lenient than the Isser Malacha and Cholamoid.
If he's not Arni and he has Hefsed Mammon in Cholamoid, what do we do? It's a problem.
One second, people go to work at Cholamoid.
People go to work. Hefsed Mammon. Not Arni.
Have some money. People do work at Cholamoid.
Why? Because they need the money. Not Arni.
They lose their job, they need the money.
Yeah.
People have stores, whatnot.
Stores. They're not closed a week.
The fear kol ma shemuter b'chol shamoid, kol shekein shemuter be'er Shabbos kol yom afilu b'schar, even for schar. So the answer, I'm not sure, but the answer to your question is like this: those people that work Friday afternoon late after Mincha Ketana on, this is probably not miritzoinem. They don't want to do that. The job that they have requires it. So it's not something that it's something that they have to do. If they don't do this, they're going to go take someone else for the job. Machloikas, look in Siv Beis, and he says, Yeshoimim, Yeshoimim. And he said, make up a different from the Hisar Abracha. As I was asking, what's the people that have jobs that you work for the city, you work for a non-Jewish company, you have to work till late Friday.
2 hours before Shabbos.
Right? So he's saying is that you're going into Zman, which is Mincha Ketana on, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases, it's probably not that late, but maybe yes. In the winter,
Depends
in the
on
winter,
yeah.
it is Mincha. Yeah. One of my family members gets out 3:00 at a Shabbos, and even in these,
When you get home,
even the winter Shabbosim,
how long will it take him home?
3:30, half hour. Right?
I'm dancing the mikvah.
Yeah.
No mikveh, that's it.
It's a woman, but
Okay.
so she has to cook all the food and everything already the night before.
It's a nice one.
That's very close.
It's very close. But what happens to your job that if you're going to get dismissed, you can't play around. They tell you this is your job. You can't leave the job. Yamot is stam together over here, the ani. If you can afford to do something else, they're good. But this is what the job and this is what it is. You can't. And it's only a problem during a few months in the summer. It's not in the winter. It's not the whole Zman. That's a stam of the answer. Obviously, if someone has the ability you work, you're self-employed, and you don't need the money now, you're not supposed to be kaveh yourself. You have to stop doing the malacha. Now, it depends. One thing that Alter Rebbe did say, he said in Siv Gimel, they also malacha gemura pragmatia moteres. Depends what type of job it is. Business, you could do, because it's not a malacha gemura. But other ones are the lamites malachis.
What does business involve?
If your business involves doing So business then wasn't as complicated then, right? You're bartering and exchanging and selling, having your store open and selling, right? It's not considered real malacha. The malacha is one of the lamitas malachas that you're mamish kaveh yourself, that you have to chop down trees or sew, like he was saying, tefillas begadim, or cutting hair, right? Of a guy, you're a barber. You're a barber, so your job is goiz is one of the lamitas malachas.
Siva is one of the lamitas malachas.
Or maybe cooking, but not l'tzoyrech Shabbos. Cooking, but not l'tzoyrech Shabbos.
For anyone.
And again, we said again, we're very makel that if derech are, it's not a problem. The issue is only derech kva. Once in a while, you came to you that you happen to do malacha, it's not an issue. The issue is that you set yourself up that every week, that min mincha k'tanan on, you do these malachas. Chazal didn't want that you should, wanted that you should be available for tzarech Shabbos now, not that you should set yourself up with other jobs. So if you want, like he said, you're allowed to write a gerish shilumim, a letter of shalom to someone, because it's not something which you do. Yeah. Well, I saw a number of years ago one of the big chassidim, Reb Mendel Chaim, was a big chassid of the Rebbe Rashab. He was killed at Kiddush Hashem when he was 40 years old. He was a big Rav in Yezhin, city where the Michoel Rebbe, I'm pretty sure, when I recollection was a Rav in the city where the Michoel Rebbe was the Rebbe years earlier. But in the times of the Rebbe Rashab, he was from a real big goyin, big chassid, a big goyin, and there were a bunch of like goyim that were like rioting, something like similar to like a pogroms. They were starting to do pogroms, and Mendel was trying to go to speak to the authorities to stop, but to stop it. On the way, they saw a group coming, and everyone else ran into the cloister. They ran into the church. So the Yidden wanted to escape.
To hide.
And Mendel wouldn't run in. So they killed him. And Mendel was considered the Rebbe Rashab's pride and joy as a chassid. The Rebbe Rashab was the grandfather of the Rebbe's wife. And he would send him to big meetings of all the Rabbanim, as Sifas Rabbanim. He would also take him with him. He was very talented. He also knew Russian well, and he knew languages well. So he brought him with him to the meetings, and he made a nice impression. But he did a lot, but he was killed very young. So this, in Mendel Chaim, I saw a letter of his that the Rebbe Rashab would want to hear his opinion on things. So he wrote him, the Rebbe Rashab was building a mikveh, and he was looking to build a mikveh when he ran away during World War I. He was running away from the Germans. He fled from Lubavitch. He never returned. He fled from the city of Lubavitch, and they fled to south, to close to Ukraine, which was the city of Rostov, which is a big city, Rostov. And that's where he was till he passed away. And he's buried there. So he wanted to build a mikveh there, and he wanted to discuss with Mendel Chaim what's the best way to do it. Because Bichlal, when they lived in the cities, in the towns, everyone built mayanis, wells, springs. The women went to the mikveh in spring water, or near the river, or in the river. And they blocked off an area of the river. It was really bad. The Alter Rebbe developed a way to make a hot mikveh in the rivers. There was a whole concept, the backs, and how we did it, because they would pour hot water in, but the hot water would always disappear. A whole box and contraption. It shouldn't be a keli. Make a hole in it, and then seal it and leave a little hole. A whole way. There was a box sitting in the river, and you they boil up hot water and pour it in. It wasn't exactly like there was a kitchen nearby. Going to them was Mesiras Nefesh Mamish, going to the mikveh. The ladies were dark at night. It was dark, freezing. There was many, there's a whole dinim in Shulchan Aruch. If the lady says, she has to say clearly, you have to believe her that she went to the mikveh. And she went to the mikveh. Who knows? She went and said she went. It was like a.
And there were those that couldn't go.
And there were shilas if they really got scared. It was dark. It was cold. It was scared. So they deep mikvahs. So there was all my yamas. That was when they had what they would dig and they would make a mayan. It wasn't for make shama rainwater. When they moved to the big cities, everything changed. Now there's no mayan mikvahs except now in Square and in Williamsburg, Papa built one. Recent things, but all over around the world, there's no more such a thing as going into Hamayim. You don't go into a live to spring, right? But you're going into rainwater. That's when they moved into cities. Before Klal Yisrael moved into the big cities, they didn't do that. So they have a Sham in the big cities, and now he was forced to make a rainwater mikveh, and he wasn't happy about it. Originally, he was very against the rainwater mikvahs. It was considered a modern thing to do. The Maskilim wanted to do that, and because they said it would be cleaner and things, and the Maskilim wanted to do this, and the enlightened Jews, the Rebbe Shab fought it. There was a certain city, there was a shoichet there, his name was Benzion Raskin, the grandfather Raskins that you hear in the Crown Heights Raskin family, Chabad Raskin family. They're
Which one? Lane Raskin?
all of them.
No, because it's two separate families.
They all come back. They all come.
To one source.
Chaim David and Lane and is his brother of all the other Lanes, of all the Raskins.
Right.
Their
No,
name
I'm
is
saying the
changed.
other, David Raskin, who was in 770.
They're all related. It's a huge family, somehow related. I think they all come from
Raskin, their name is Lane.
right, but their mother was a Raskin, and they changed their name to the mother's name because of the paperwork. Get out, whatever it was. So one brother is called Lane. His last name is Lane. The other three brothers' name was Raskin. But they're brothers. Now his name is Lane, and all his kids and his grandchildren, their name is Lane.
The same mother, the same father?
Yeah. But their names are different. When Ellis Island or when they were leaving
He
Russia,
changed it back. This Lane changes back.
he went and changed back to the original name. They all changed their name to the mother's name for some reason. They had to, in order to leave, it was easier for them to leave or get in. It was easier for them to do it that way. So they have them sit next to each other in shul. One is Lane, one is Raskin, and they're brothers. It sounds funny, yeah, but they look similar build. You ever hear Raskin's fish?
Yeah.
Well, that's one brother.
There's a Rabbi Raskin downtown Brooklyn.
Well, so two of the brothers were nifter in the past few years. There were a few brothers. Two have fish stores in Crown Heights. One is Raskin's, one is Bensie's, and you have them all, and all the stores sell that.
Oh, Betsy also brought it?
So same name to JJ
Right,
Right.
right.
He's
But he's. Oh, you related to them?
Alaska.
Ah,
He's Alaska.
ah,
My Sher's first cousin.
ah. So there's Alaska in Europe. Well, it was big in the OK. That's your cousin.
Kenzan. He's a big Moshe
But-
Alaska. Rock, also another Alaska
Mm.
family.
So this
What happened was there were two brothers, Michoel Yitzchak and
JJ's wife was Alaska.
that's it. And that's Russell Goldberg was about his. That's where my Aiden comes from. Cousin.
Mhm.
There were two brothers. There was Michoel Yitzchak, the younger brother, and Elimelech. So Elimelech took, Dr. Vidahech and this cousin. So he gravitated to the Rayats. And my wife's grandfather gravitated to Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner because he lived on the East Coast. So you have one. So who's the black sheep? That's the So everybody on this side is the black. Everybody on this side is Chaim Berlin.
Did they go to each other's simchas?
Shimon Groner was Mashgiach for years and years from Marshall and Chaim Berlin. Big Shimon Groner, like Groner's first cousin. Simchas. Politics is politics. Simchas.
Simple that Achdu.
Mashiach comes around to the simchas. They all.
Heck with the Sherlock Holmes hat. Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's missing his pipe.
Yeah. So you have the.
My wife went to camp in winter.
So this Bensi Raskin. This so he is named after. Yeah.
It's a big market share on in the Chabad.
Yeah. Yeah. He's fine. He's making the herring. He's making the herring every week. You go to all the stores here. You get herring, gefilte fish. This is two brothers went in.
He says a whole lot of this.
Yeah, they all have the two of them. The two brothers. So the other brother was Nifter, Sean Berke. They called him Berke. In Kingston, he had Raskins, and his other brothers on a block away. And there was a third brother, Michoel, who he was also Nifter recently. Michoel had a fruit store, and there's a fourth brother. He's not in the grocery. He collected for yeshiva in Krachabad. He's Lane. He's called Lane. He's Bensi. I see him all the time. He comes to the shul where we have the koilel, and he comes every week and he brings the herring for his own herrings from his store. He puts in the fridge. Every other Shabbos should be herring for Shabbos for the kiddush. Yeah, every week he walks over.
He does Rabbi Heller.
No, not there. Another shul, Montgomery. He comes every week. He brings his herring and puts it in the fridge.
Contribution.
Every week. Every week I see him bring in. He's a very nice person. Very fine. A good midas.
You're the official Rav in that shul?
No.
Who's the Rav there? There's no one.
Rabbi Fisher is the Rav.
But he's not, he's there?
It's back and forth. I think that's the heter. So Bensi and Raskin, what was I saying? Well, we got into this whole thing, the genealogy of the Raskin family. The Bensi and Raskin was their grandfather, the great grandfather. He was a Liadi Chassid originally. He went as there was a different branch of. There was Chabad, wasn't always Chabad Lubavitch. There was Chabad, but there were different groups in Chabad. Why? After the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe was nostalgic, most of his sons became Rebbes. And so, but only one son, the youngest, remained in Lubavitch, so he became in his father's seat. So he was called Chabad Lubavitch. But the other ones are called Chabad Kapost, Chabad Liadi, they're different names. They didn't continue that much. There was a number of years, but Chabad Kapost continued for quite a bit.
Come out.
Not connected to Bechlal.
They go by the Rashab.
But they weren't from the children, weren't from the family.
His brother, Yankiv Shul, was in the Allah.
Right, he was an Adam, right? Wasn't he his Adam? No. Or he was his Talmud of his.
There's nothing left of them, Allah.
No. Very little. So they have a shul, I think, still in Williamsburg. I don't think there's much going on there. So the Payil, this B'tzir Raskin, there was a Shaykhet and Baidik in the city. And a Shaykhet then, in a city, was not just like a Shaykhet. He was like the Ruchnius in the city. He was the Shaykhet, he represented something. Was the Rav and the Shaykhet? The Shaykhet represented something. Yeah, he was something with the. They say always when there was fights between the Chassidim and the Snagdim in the cities, who should be the Rav, who should be the Shaykhet, they all wanted from each other. The Pshara by Chassidim by Chabad was always, we have to be careful who the Shaykhet is. The Rav could be anyone. The Shaykhet is what we eat. The Rabbi, what we pass in our own home, so that's so anyway. So the Tzion's a Shaykh. He wrote to the Rebbe Shab that they want to make like the mikvois, like the metoda chadasha, like the new modern method. Metoda chadasha means the modern method. Metoda is the word method. There's no th in Hebrew. Metoda means there's no th. That sound doesn't exist in the Lashon Kodesh or Ivrit. So the metoda chadasha that they want to make, and the Rebbe Shab brought back them chas v'shalom to build the mikveh, rainwater mikvahs, which all of us use. Chas v'shalom to let it be built. We have a Masoida, we use mayonis, we use springs, and we're always using this. And he brought a sefer from the Rabbi Yehuda's Talmud, who wrote about mikvahs. And Rabbi Yehuda's Talmud writes that's the only way you could be zoyer in mikvahs like all the days, only with a mikvah mayan. Don't let them do it. But he wrote back that the community is saying that they wrote letters to different Gedolei Yisrael. They wrote to the Chafetz Chaim. He didn't want to respond to them because he understood, didn't respond. They wrote to Chaim Brisker, Chaim Salvechik, and Chaim wrote Hiskil Lasses. It's been seen. Rasky wrote to the Rebbe Shab that he went with Chachma, and he sent back to them a copy of the first sif of the Shulchan Aruch by Hilchos Mikvahs, that you can make a mikvah mayin or a mikvah make shamim. I'm not saying anything. Shulchan Aruch. Kilam meg, yeah. And he's telling the Rebbe Shab. The Rebbe Shab said, you have to kemf. He held that you have to kemf against this thing, the maskilim are introducing this new method. The Payil, I don't know what happened in the city, but the Rebbe Shab himself, later in life, when he migrated due to the war, migrated to the city and lived now in a city, not in a village. And in a city, you don't have wells in a city. You don't have springs in a city.
There's no choice.
There was no choice. And he built a rainwater mikveh based on rainwater. And how did he, when he wanted to do it, he thought 20 times what he's going to do, how he should make it the best way possible. So one of the things was he wrote some letters to this chassid, Mendel Chaim, that we were talking that was killed at Kiddush Hashem. And getting back to bring it to what we were learning, to go to Maitiv, and he said, and we have this letter from a Mendel Chaim that we discovered a number of years ago. It was discovered in a library in Moscow from those manuscripts that Chabad is working hard, that everyone knows they're always in the news, they're trying to get those manuscripts out. So they recently found this letter there, one of the manuscripts, a letter from Mr. Mendel Chaim, a long letter to the Rebbe Rashab, that regarding what Chak Shlita, Kvod Kodshe Shlita, is asking me about the mikveh, Mia, Niyamani, but he goes on to explain what he feels. It goes through all the Rishonim, the Kvois, and he thinks that he said that what Chak wants to do is good, it's okay, and he explains the whole Arichis. And the Rebbe Shabbat sent him a conscious of his, which we don't have. Maybe one day it will be surface somewhere. But the Rebbe Shabbat sent him a whole conscious of his Mikvois, and he asked him to give his opinions. So he wrote his opinions on it and everything. At the ending of the letter, he writes that he's being Bekatzer, because it's now Erev Pesach, and it's Mamish getting close to Pesach, and therefore he has to finish writing the letter. He said maybe on Chol Hamoed, even though normally he writes that my minig is I don't write on Chol Hamoed, but maybe for this, maybe I'll continue the letter on Chol Hamoed. The Vaile is sending it off. What I'm saying was over here that you saw that I get a shilumim. If you're not kivei yourself to write, it's okay. The problem is be kiveya malacha. That's but to do derech arei malacha, you're allowed to write derech arei. Kivei yourself that I write now, or I do another malacha. I'm cooking not for Shabbos, or I'm doing tefillas begadim. Other one of the malachas gemuras, you're not allowed to be kivei yourself in a mincha ketanan. Do something derech arei temporarily. Something came up and you did something. Like this Mendel Chaim was writing the letter. Wasn't an issue. Interesting enough, the Rebbe would write letters on Chol Hamoed, by the way. He would write on Chol Hamoed, he would respond to people, but he wouldn't sign the letter. He would write the letter, but he would make a change. He wouldn't sign off. And on the bottom it would say, be printed, Mikpnei Kedushas Hamoed, Loi Bo Chak Ad Mashlita Ala Chasain. He wouldn't sign the letter, but that was the shinui that he made. That he would write the letter, but he wouldn't sign the letters. He got a letter on Chol Hamoed.
What does Chak stand for?
Kvod Kodshe. Kvod Kedushas.
Some of the
When it's with Admor, it's Kvod Kedushas Admor. When it's for itself, Chak Shlita, you would say Kvod Kodshe. For a Rebbe, and he write in front of a Rebbe. You see always by a Rebbe they say Chak Ad Chof Kuf. Chof Kuf.
Chof Kuf.
You always see by the Rebbes, they write Chof Kuf Admor, all the Rebbes.
Some of the letters were signed by the secretaries.
Right.
Tzitzis stand for
The
sometimes.
Rebbe didn't have a problem with the secretaries, but he wouldn't himself. He was machmir not to
What
write.
is the abbreviation? Tzitzis, tzaddik. Something you see also tzaddik.
Tzaddik Yisod Olam. That you see. Chabad doesn't write that, but you see by others use the Tzaddik Yisod Olam. Tzaddik Yud Samach Ayin.
Right.
When the Rebbe made Sheva Brachas for me, one of the other Sheva Brachas was Chen. I don't know which Chen, but it was 19.
Yeah, there's a lot of chains in Chabad. I mean, not as much as the Raskins, but there's chains. They were big Chassidim, going all the way back to Alter Rebbe.
That is a Hebrew word.
Just be back to time.
It was
They already made the Chain family. They're very prestigious yichus. The Chain family. You remember they used to have in Flappishire the Chain Shul, America's Bracha.
Where was it?
Menshe, where was the Chain Shul? It was not far from here, right? America's Bracha.
It was a block away from Landau Shul.
Was here all the years, but I think he went to Eretz Yisrael, right?
Yeah, he moved there to Israel.
There's nothing there, no more chains over there.
So
There's no shul by M anymore?
no, but now Zalman's son, they opened up that shul over there by where the guy from the bagel store has a building.
Yes, I used to have a shoe.
Yeah, so
That's
what over there is. I'm sorry, it's between East
You know, he went to,
East and
he goes on,
Sorry.
Two more.
Rabbi Davis.
Really?
that's what I heard.
And to the every other guy also, he doesn't come anymore. These two guys.
Rabbi Davis.
Vogel.
Yeah, they went to Zalman Libra.
They left.
We need you for a minyan.
Captain,
Yeah.
because he wants to give a long bashir on Mashiach, probably.
Closer to
You
the
have
house.
only 9? You don't
Yeah,
have
No, we need two people.
So why'd they come here?
Because he had somebody who was.
Shmulik is not here tonight. Where did he go?
Get along with the guy left.
Shmulik.
Went to visit his mother in Israel.
Shmuel has a soul, that's not Shmuel.
She's 80.
Shakaya for joining.
The one sitting where you
Yeah,
eat.
Shmuel.
My pleasure. Thank you, Shkoyach, for giving us the share.
Sei gesund.
Go to Canada and Israel.
We don't have a menu?
Still at 5 minutes.